FM 94, The Dark. It is that time again. It's time to get to know a band we play on The Dark. And today on the phone, I got Paisley and KC. They're from the band called Moretta. And Moretta, actually, a couple weeks back was in the Rock in the Dark New Music Poll. And I believe just narrowly lost in the poll, but got a lot of votes. And first of all, guys, welcome to The Dark. How are we doing, by the way? How things going?
Doing good. Great.
Let's talk about the band Moretta. And I don't care who wants to start, Paisley or Casey, but how did the band Moretta all come about? What's the history? What's the story behind the band?
Well, we got some time?
We got time.
All right. No, it's not the abridged version is I've taken a break from music. This is Paisley's voice. I took a break from music for a while just 'cause had a couple kids and, whatever. Just kind of let it go for a bit. And then a couple studios in town approached me and asked me if I wanted to help produce bands. And I realized, I was like, I don't really have a resume. They just kind of be taking my word for it. So the idea was to record a track and go in and play all the instruments on the track, and that would be kind of a resume to bring around to different bands. And I was a couple of weeks out from going in and doing it, and I came across a video of Casey over here whacking drums, and I was like, well, maybe I won't play everything. So I reached out to Casey and asked if he would be interested in doing it. And that track was, it was Landmines, which is, I don't know, I think number 9 or something on our debut album. And it just worked, and it clicked, and I haven't had that sort of connection on a musical level with somebody in a long time. And it just kind of put a spark in both of our eyes, and we didn't stop. We kept going, and it was only a couple months later from very first ever meeting each other that we had an EP, and then the next week it was turning into, are we just about to be an album? And then the next week it was an album. And it just kind of all spitballed really, really quick, and we went in and did it. That was, it was really fast, and hard to really look back on now because we're still inside of a year from that debut album coming out. That'll be next month. It'll be 1 year, and yeah, it's crazy to think of how fast things have really progressed over the last year. But from your viewpoint, Casey, what was just some creepo hitting you up on Facebook?
I was going to say, is that story, Casey, what Paisley just said, is that really true or not?
I mean, I had been playing in bands around Spokane for the last 3 or 4 years before that happened, and then he kind of just hit me up, and I've always been kind of open to work with new people and kind of widen my playing with other people and stuff like that. And he hit me up. I came into the studio and he showed me the track, and I dug it, and I kind of just took it to the kit and jammed out on it for a while, and we just kept getting together and writing new tunes. And but as far as being some creep on Facebook, no, I mean I had known who Paisley was from the station and everything, so it was all cool.
That the creepos came in when you got the next two guys in the band, right? Is that what it all is?
Yeah, that was the creep factor. Weirded us both out for sure. No, it was, but that was really the spark that started it. We knew we could do it, and we just kind of decided at whatever point that the resume goal was still there. It was just going to be a really big resume, and it did its job, and it helped out and did some of that work, and still do it to this day. But it definitely became something bigger than we really saw at the beginning. But after jamming together, we realized where the potential was going, and decided to give it to see it through, and here we are.
Wow, very cool, very cool. We're talking with Paisley. He's the lead vocals of the band Moretta. And, of course, also talking with KC. He's the drummer of the band Moretta. And, of course, you have two other members of the band, Zach and Connor, too. How did those guys come about?
We just kind of pulled them together. I knew Zach. I was buds with Zach for a little while before Moretta really fired off. He plays in a bunch of different bands around the area. And asked him if he was interested in doing it, and he said yes. And then we just kind of disappeared for a while. because like I was mentioning, Casey and I, as far as the resume goal went, it was me and Casey doing everything that on the album, so playing guitar and bass and singing and all that kind of stuff, and then Casey, of course, playing drums. So when I brought it up to Zach, he was like, "Yeah," and that was when we thought we were doing one track, and then kind of seeing where it went from there. And then it just kind of turned into a full album. So Zach was like, "Hey, you still there? Is that something we're still doing?" Just a handful of months later. And then once the album and everything was put together and about to come out, then Casey knew Connor from another band that I guess wasn't going very well at that time, and decided to, come over and venture with us and see how it worked, and there it is.
Very cool. Well, let's get the name. Obviously, I always ask the name. It's the big question, the name. Where did it come from? Why did you guys choose the name Moretta? What's the meaning behind the name for you guys?
It's a fun one, and Casey hates it.
Okay. So who wants to explain it?
My last name is Marotta.
Okay.
And so one day, Paisley came up to me, and he was like, "Yo, dude, how about we just name the band your last name? It'll be sick." And then I don't know.
I was half joking around because I thought it was brutal sounding.
Yeah.
Marotta. It kind of has this really funny tone. So I brought it up to Casey, and he was like, "Yeah." And then like a couple days later, he came up to me and he was like, "Yo, dude, I got this. Like, why don't we call it Moretta? Like, it's a I thought it was a made up word, right?" Well, so did I.
And
I just switched around a couple letters.
Right.
In it to make it not his last name, and I honestly, to God, thought it was a made-up word. And then after looking it up, it turns out that it's an old, creepy 16th century leather mask. It's called a Moretta mask, and I was like, "Oh, dude, that's it." So, by accident, named the band, and then he just happened to have a meeting that fit the genre that we were working with, and then. Casey found out on some alone time that it's actually also the name of a porn star.
There we
I
go.
don't know what he was doing, but he just found it.
I thought that was you.
Oh, I love it. Hey, actually, it's funny though that I've talked to Speed from the band Silver Tongue. I don't know if you've heard of that band before, but they got their name from a porno movie. That's why it all came about. So. So you wouldn't be the first you wouldn't be the first band to have something like that happen, okay? And you won't be the last either, I'm sure.
We're gonna name our next album from a porn movie.
Hey, we're talking with Paisley and Casey from the band Moretta, and now we've got kind of the origin of the name, how it all came about. Talk about the rock scene in Idaho. What is the rock scene like over there?
It's all tied in together to the Inland Northwest with Spokane.
Yep.
So Coeur d'Alene and Spokane are just about 25-minute, 30-minute drive from each other. So everything as far as the scene goes and the bands and the musicians, they're all shared across the border. So I mean, it's big. Rock is huge staple in Spokane. And I say that because it just got, like I said, it all just encompasses the entire area, the Inland Northwest.
Right.
But there's plenty of venues, and there's huge bands that come to town, and in a lot of cases, you have that giant city with the Space Needle on the other side of the stage.
Mm-hmm.
I forget what the name of it is, but so
Vancouver.
Yeah, Vancouver. I think they have a Space Needle, but they get a ton of shows all the time. And when people started discovering it, it's not like it's something new, discovering what was in Spokane, which is, the second biggest city in the state.
Right.
Don't get nearly as many shows, not nearly as jaded and washed out as Seattle is. So the rock acts that come to town get huge support, and it's very frequently now and has been for, at least the last decade or so.
That's cool. I mean, that's cool. And obviously, I've got to know Quinn very well from obviously Radio Contraband and all that. And I think he's got some promoting things that he does out there, too. And I've seen nothing but good things out of that area.
I'm definitely excited for the future.
It's super supportive over here, all the bands and everything.
I want to talk about let's talk about that, the support, and for that matter, the industry in itself. I guess, what's your feelings right now on rock industry and maybe even rock radio for that is. I guess, what is your take on that, guys? Anybody can chime in on this one.
Well, I think that the rock industry, it's going to have to do what a lot of other industry has had to do and will have to do, and that's just kind of figuring out where its place is, and it's going to follow the money trail. You look at everything as far as digital sales and looking at physical sales and trying to figure out where that balance is. And the one thing that you can't replace is a live performance, or can't replace yet. People still want to be there and feel it. So I think as long as there's a place to play and there's bands that are ready to do it, it's going to be around. You can't replace it. The feeling of, you can pretend to replace it. And I guess if there's a generation that grows up thinking that watching a concert on a phone or on a computer that's what it is, then that's what it feels like to go to a show. I guess, it's sad, but if it's sold that way, I guess it could possibly have an effect. But you going to a show and feeling the power and watching the act live, I don't know if that can be replaced. I think the money is always there, and it'll be something. But again, I think that the middle and beginner size bands trying to get out there and break into it's going to become an increasingly harder and more difficult thing to do. The overtake of the gigantic festivals and gigantic bands, where if you're in, kind of like a giant CEO corporate thing.
Right.
And those bands are going to continue to flourish, and the bands that haven't made it in, it's going to be even harder to get through that threshold to be a part of the party.
Well, and I'll blame a little bit the radio industry too. That's kind of pigeonholed some of these bands to where they are today, and bands like yourself not getting an opportunity to be on the radio just because nowadays corporate's dictating what the playlists are rather than what the actual music guy, programming guy wants them to play or wants to play. And I think that has a little bit to do with why the rock industry has kind of fizzled out a little bit. What are your take on that, I guess?
Yeah, safety and numbers, over commercial, it's all, tying back into money. You play the music that's why there's so many classic rock stations, because of that tie, that safety blanket,
Right.
Where they know that music is successful and there's an audience for it. Everybody likes it. The bands have already done it. They were already popular. So now you have the active rock that you're trying to break through, and there's a set group of bands that have already done it, and that it shows that the listeners like it and appreciate it, and obviously those are the ones that get that heavy rotation on the rock stations. But I think it all just filters back to trying to figure out where that line is. There's a place for up and coming bands. Obviously, there's always going to be talent, and there's always going to be bands that are doing that dream and trying to make it and feel they have a message and a passion that they want to share and inspire people. And that's not going to go away. It's just a matter of figuring out where that path is. And right now, I think that there's too many paths, I guess. There's a lot of different ways for people trying to get there, which is fine. But I think that as far as getting on the airwaves and trying to figure that out, I don't even think the radio stations know really what the future is, what that path is going to look like.
Yeah, I think you're right on. And then the one thing I think, at least with this program, The Dark, which is plays rock music, and that is we try to cater to bands up and coming like yourself and other bands out there to give them at least a platform here and at least to be heard in this area. Obviously, we're a small area, so you're not covered across the whole United States. But if you get stations like ours that do that around the country, it does add up, and you can start to get some fans and generate some money like you need so you can get to that next level.
Woohoo!
Woohoo!
Yes, that's why we appreciate it, Dark.
Absolutely. Hey, let's talk about the band Moretta, since we've been talking about all these social issues and all the thing that's happened to rock industry. Let's get back to the music, though, and the passion that you guys have of this rock music. And I guess growing up as a kid, what did you guys listen to, and what decided to say, hey, I want to be a rock star one day?
Oh, man. Well, for me, when I was growing up, I listened to a lot kind of heavier bands. My uncle was a drummer, so he always inspired me to just hop behind the kit kind of jam out. But it wasn't until I was probably about 14 to when I really started getting into drumming, and I started listening to, I don't know, just heavier, like rockin'.
Just say the band. Someone will know them.
Bands like, I don't know, you could say like Slipknot, Five Finger Death Punch, Bullet for My Valentine, like all those just like radio rock bands. And then I started to get into stuff with like more technical drumming, like Animals as Leaders, and a couple new bands like Good Tiger, yeah, Alex Rudinger, Vel Maya's also. You know the bands I like more than I do.
Very cool. Yeah, I mean, so yeah, I'm just kind of looking at your inspiration, why you decided to kind of choose the path on the music side of things, and obviously you said if you're a drummer and that.
Yeah, my uncle.
Or uncle, I mean your uncle. Yep.
My uncle, he passed away. He was making a living as a professional musician over in New York, and one night, I don't really know exactly what happened, but there was I was kind of sheltered from it and all that, but by my parents. But he was murdered, and I ended up getting like when I was 14, when I started getting into it a lot more, was when that happened, and I ended up getting all his professional equipment, his super nice drums. He was endorsed by Sonar and Pasty Cymbals, and I ended up getting all that. And when we threw like a benefit concert to help pay for all the funds for the investigation and all the and the funeral and stuff like that, and all his musician friends were at it, and they saw me play, and they saw a lot of potential in me, and they started to want to get together with me and jam with me and stuff like that. And so when I was like 14, I just started to kind of get the feel what playing in a band was like, and from there I just love it. I joined my first band called Faded Identity. Played my first show when I was 14 as well, yeah, and I just kind of I loved it from there.
That's cool. How about for you, Paisley? What kind of inspired you to go this path in life?
So my dad is he's a crazy good musician.
Okay.
And he didn't really force anything on me. He just left all the instruments around the house. And I thought that was very smart. My half brother was in a very successful band. We didn't grow up in the same household or anything like that, and I didn't really understand how successful they were until I got a little bit older. But I just started picking up the guitar, and when I'd pick up an instrument, my dad would be like, "Hey, hey, you like that? Let me show you some chords," and then he'd disappear. He'd vanish away and let me play it, and do it all myself. It was all really self-driven, and really funny, just because it's fun to bring up. I went to school on a percussion scholarship, and then I thought it was okay at drums until I met Casey. I realized I'm terrible at drums. But over the years, even well before that, I basically found a lot more interest in playing guitar, and just kind of started developing singing and all that kind of stuff. And it just kind of, spitball from there. But yeah, like Casey, into heavier stuff, heavier music. I grew up in a tiny town, Haley, Idaho, Sun Valley area, and there's no rock radio station there. So everything I was listening to was at the CD store, recommended by Big Bad Bill.
Big Bad Bill.
Yeah, so a lot of heavy stuff, and man, I'm super glad it happened. Still like it, which is exciting. That I still listen to heavy metal music. I didn't, my parents thought I'd grow out of it, and boy, were they wrong.
We're talking with Paisley and Casey from the band Moretta. Who's kind of helped you guys in the industry right now? Has there been somebody that's mentored you along a little bit or helped you, or are you guys just kind of all on your own out there?
We're on our own. It's not like it's a scary world. Again, it's back connected to everything on the internet and all that kind of stuff. We've got a good understanding, or a basic understanding from our perspective of how to do stuff. Recording and video production and all that kind of stuff is all on our plate. We're doing that all right now. We didn't do it with our debut album. We did that at Rainbow Trout with Bill Neiman, and it turned out great. and I used to do a lot of audio production. So since that came out, Casey and I, with all the extra money we could scrape together, just started piecing together different pieces of of studio equipment and getting the studio back up and running, and that's where we are right now. So as far as putting it all out there and just trying to make the best stuff we possibly can, that's where we are. It's just us dudes pushing it, trying to make something in there, Passion thing. That good music and the ability to make it and create it and get it out there is going to spark conversation and get in the right earlobes.
The current song right now is on our airwaves is Diminishing. What's the story behind the song, and kind of what urged you to make this song?
Well, it was actually, I remember bringing it to Casey's house the day that I wrote it. I brought it to Casey, and I remember us sitting there jamming on it. And Casey looked at me, and he goes, "This song's gonna be really good." I said, "Yeah, I think it's gonna turn out all right." And and that was really all. We honestly played probably through it 2 times before we went to the studio. And lyrically,
yeah, I hated you for that.
sorry about that. We really pushed that album. I mean, we got in and recorded. I mean, we had like 4 physical sessions. We went into the studio to record the entire full-length album. But going back to Diminishing, it's actually about a friend of mine and about drug addiction, which I think everybody can relate to that, either personally or has somebody who is struggling with an addiction. But that's really what the song's all about. It's about basically taking a look at yourself and, seeing, you think that, I mean, the chorus talking about, you set sail on the ship you built of solid stone. I was all just thinking, obviously everything's fine and floating right now, but it can't be like that forever.
That's cool. That's very cool. That's I've listened to the song a bunch of times, and now I guess I get to feel that meaning behind it. I mean, you could kind of tell there was some pain in that song, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, for whatever reason, almost I don't think we have a happy song lyrically, but that's just where it's not, when I'm happy, I'm not
we're happy when we play them.
Yes, we're happy
Absolutely.
when we play them. Yeah, a lot of my writing, I don't necessarily express. What's that saying where the squeaky wheel gets the oil or whatever?
Squeaky wheel gets the grease, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. That makes more sense. It's just kind of, if it's good and it's fine, it's not something that I'm really writing about and digging into. So it's typically about rough situations and kind of figuring out, either I put myself in the shoes of that, I'm going through it, or I've gone through it, or I know what it must feel like, and I know somebody else, and I just kind of dig into it.
You guys obviously have been out and done some shows and done some live stuff. What's it like going to a concert and seeing you guys play? What if I would go to a Moretta concert? What would I expect?
Oh man, lots of energy.
Okay.
For sure. I mean, as myself behind the kit, I definitely try to interact with the crowd as much as I can and just be entertaining. I mean, people like to listen and hear good music, but like if you put on a show at the same time, I feel like that's what they really go home remembering is who put on the best show.
Power and polished. I mean, we take pride. I mean, I know there's not a whole lot of trickery in Diminishing. I mean, there is like a 3/4 and a 5/4, a couple parts in that breakdown later on in the song.
Right.
But a lot of the tracks that we write, there's a lot of stops and a lot of weird counting stuff, and making sure all of that is very crisp and very tight, where you just go, what just happened? How did everybody know exactly where they were and play what they did leading up to it and out of it, and still make that stop, crisp and clear? And that's kind of where we pride ourselves, going banana sandwich, but also being able to play what people are expecting.
Have you guys had a chance to venture out of your kind of your regional area and doing some national tours yet, or is that on the horizon?
No, we appreciate that you think that we could, but we have not. It's all been regional thus far, but we are looking forward to whatever that break may be.
I guess here's a question for you, and I always like to ask, if you had to put together your ultimate 3-band bill to play with currently, who would you like to be out with on tour right now?
I think mine. They're still active and they're still playing, right?
Yeah, well, let's do that, yeah. So, Paisley, what's yours going to be?
Mine would be Thrice, Killswitch Engage, and, I don't know. Probably because they just fired up and I'm thinking about them under oath.
Okay. The cool thing about Killswitch Engage is they did something they've never done before. They just hit the Billboard Top 200, top 6. I think they were number 6 last week on their first week of their record, Incarnate, that came out. That's awesome for that band.
Yeah, it's huge. They've been putting out hits that I would say deserve that top spot. But
yeah.
I think that, as we both know, going back to that tier, even a band that's as huge and as good and amazing as Killswitch Engage still hasn't gotten into that top. Even in the top 3, that's crazy. But yeah, you definitely have to look at the structure and try to figure out exactly what is going on.
Casey, who would you like to go out on a 3-band bill tour if you had to choose your ultimate?
I would love to play with probably Memphis Mayfire.
Oh yeah.
A band called Periphery.
Yes.
And I'd say, I don't know, Era maybe.
Okay.
A band called Era.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I mean, Periphery, we've played Alpha on our airwaves. It's a very good song. And
oh, yeah.
So there's, and that's the thing. A lot of these bands,
they're killer. Their drummer's amazing.
They're so good, but they just don't get commercial radio airplay. I mean, you might get played at the college level and stuff like that, but like going back to what we talked about earlier, it's just sometimes you get pigeonholed into certain things that you play, and that's all it is. And that's the cool thing, at least about our program, is we like to explore and let people get turned on to some new music that rocks.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I think that's all part of the thing. Again, is a lot of bands that were once very heavy are starting to look at the business model that we've kind of been the theme of this discussion today, and figuring out how they could even have a chance to be on the other side of it. Bring Me the Horizon.
Yeah.
Of Mice and Men.
Of Mice and Men. We're playing one more.
Asking Alexandria.
Yeah, Asking Alexandria. Those bands used to be about as heavy as you could possibly go
right.
as far as the hardcore world goes, and slowly becoming not that. People would yell at them for selling out, but unless you want to go back to whatever job you didn't want to do before you went into the music, go back to it. You got to figure it out. We're balancing with that right now with Moretta. Actually, a lot of the stuff on the album that Diminishing off of, we know it's way too heavy for any sort of commercial success. It's where our passion is. But we also tried to throw in a lot of balance with the cleans in the heavy screaming to cross genres and get to a wider audience and not just pigeonhole ourselves out the gate where we don't even have that chance. So we definitely had a conscious effort to make that balance, and we'll continue to do more of that.
And looking forward to it, definitely. Let's get to the listeners out there. How can they find out more about your band, Moretta? Where can they get the information and all that so they can buy a CD, your debut album that came out last year?
All right. Well, that is Facebook.com/Moretta Band. That's pretty much the main one right there. That'll link you over to everything else we have going on. As far as the album, Diminishing, of course, and all the other 9 tracks off of our debut album can be found anywhere that has that you use. It basically should have the album, and then we are well on our way recording our next. I say EP was a joke because of what happened the last time, but we're already looking at about 7 or 8 new songs just in the last couple months that we're ready to go forward with.
Awesome. KC Paisley, thanks so much for sharing your story with us. Appreciate it.
Thank you,
Yes,
Jay-Z.
thank you.
And thank you to The Dark for rolling Diminishing. We appreciate the support.
Absolutely. And guess what? We're going to play it right now. The latest from the band Moretta. The song is called Diminishing. You're hearing it right now on FM 94's The Dark.